Hey everyone, and welcome to our event tonight. We are so excited because we are talking about one of the favorite itineraries across Disney Cruise Line, Alaska.
Woohoo!
So as you're coming in, I know, I agree. And it kind of matches. It's a little dreary, a little cold out today. So or at least it is here. So kind of setting the mood for some of those maybe chillier Alaska temps. We'll talk about that. That was a big question that we got. But as you guys are coming in, let us know if you have ever been on an Alaska Disney cruise, if you have one planned. If you do, let us know the dates. Or if you're like us and are excited and like, come on, Disney, when are you releasing 2024? Because I know we are excited. So let us know in the
Mhm.
comments. You guys know me. I'm Rebecca. I'm your admin of the Disney Cruise Line community. So excited to have you here. And we are joined by the wonderful Crissi O'Kane. Crissi, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Crissi O'Kane with Academy Travel. I specialize in all things cruising, and I'm so excited about tonight's presentation because a lot of people just kind of associate cruising with the Caribbean, and Caribbean cruises are wonderful. But the truth is, cruising is also a wonderful way to see the world, like the whole world. You can actually see almost now. You can even see Antarctica on a cruise ship, but not with Disney yet. So Alaska cruises are such a special way to experience such a special part of our planet. And I just think it's something that I just wish more people took advantage of. And it's not as intimidating as you might think. It's going to be different than a Caribbean cruise, but it's going to be really special too.
Yes, and I'm excited to learn right there with you guys. I am probably like a good chunk of you, like Chrissy said. When I think of cruise, I think of sandy beaches and a frozen drink in my hand. But I've always wanted to do an Alaskan cruise because they just look amazing. And I'm excited. I literally have pen and paper here. I'm going to be taking notes so that I can hopefully start planning my Alaska cruise. But if you guys have any questions, make sure to submit those. We'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can during the event. But if you have any questions specifically for Chrissy, maybe something that's tailored for your family, or if you want help planning your next Disney Cruise Line vacation, reach out to her. That is a link directly to her page. She is so incredibly responsive, and her services are absolutely free to you. And no, your internet didn't just like buzz out there for a second. You can plan with Chrissy across any cruise line, including Disney Cruise Line, and her services are free. So take advantage. And let's just quickly check the comments to see never been, but planning on it. Yes, you and me both booked our first one. Yay. First cruise ever. Oh, that's so exciting. Somebody going in September. Oh, amazing. Okay. So we've got a good variety of people in here. So I guess let's kind of kick it off with, when does Disney sail to Alaska? Is this kind of a staple itinerary?
It is. Obviously, we do have a question in the comments about asking when 2024 will be released. Gosh, I wish I knew. Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. We would predict it to be within about the next month to month and a half is what I would predict, but that's just my prediction based on past years. But Disney sails in Alaska itineraries on with one of their ships from May to September. In the past, it's been the Wonder, and it's a wonderful itinerary. They do 5, 7, 8, and 9 night itineraries. However, almost all of them are 7 nights. There's just a scattering of other nights kind of mixed in to change things up a little bit. And the dates are May through September, and you will see a significant price difference if you're looking at the ends, the Mays and the Septembers versus the center, and that is peak Alaska season. But all Alaska sailings are going to be wonderful. The big thing that affects pricing is school. That is the biggest part, right? A lot of kiddos are still in school in May, and then they're already going back in September. So people's availability is different. And then the further that you go into the season, the rainier Alaska is going to get. So just keep that in mind, that Alaska is actually, Ketchikan is apparently the rainiest city in the world. I learned that today in research. Didn't know. I knew it was very rainy. Didn't know it actually has that title. Had no idea. So just keep that in mind. Rainy in Alaska is still better than rainy anywhere else. So, keep that in mind. But it's summer sailings, and generally those May sailings are my personal favorite, but any Alaska sailing is going to be wonderful.
Awesome. And I know you mentioned 5 night, 8 night. Chrissy and I did videos on how to kind of maximize those shorter and longer sailings. So if you're not already subscribed on YouTube, make sure to go to the DCL Community YouTube channel and watch those videos with Chrissy, because she had some awesome tips. But I know the first thing people are going to ask, it's Alaska, it's apparently rainy, it's apparently cold. Can you swim on an Alaskan Disney cruise? Is that
Yes.
possible?
Absolutely. So the pools are open. They're going to be open every day. Weather is not necessarily what most people assume is pool weather. But remember that even though you're in Alaska, it is summer. Depending on where you're from, it might be warmer than your winter or even your fall. It's going to be in mostly around the mid 60s for most of your trips. Cooler in the evenings, just like Caribbean cruising, same concept. The sun goes down, everything gets colder. But mostly it's going to be in the 60s-ish, high 50s-ish. And the pools are heated. A lot of people will get on and knock out that water slide, check the box. I did it, and now I'm done. And it's like your own little version of a polar plunge. But yes, you can swim. It's just, colder out.
Yeah. And Disney does heat their pools and they have hot tubs on board. So I know that personally, especially when I was a kid, I didn't care if it was 30 degrees out. I still wanted to get in the pool regardless of how cold or warm it was. So if your kids are like that, bring the bathing suits. Like I said, hot tubs still available. Pools are heated. But we do have a couple of questions here. Yes, we are going to be recording this for you guys to watch afterwards. When is it the warmest and driest, Chrissy? When would you recommend
warmest
going?
is June and July, and then driest would, if you want to kind of get the best of both worlds, you're going to be looking at June and early July. I would say kind of peak Alaska season is that mid-July to mid-August. But the rain is just starting to really pick up at that point. But Ketchikan last year had 295 days of rain. So that's a lot. I was reading that, that is a lot. So it's just something to keep in mind. I have a couple other notes on that too. So even if you're sailing at the driest time of the year, you're probably still going to have a rainy day. That's why Mickey has a rain outfit, including galoshes.
Very good point. And it is such a cute outfit.
So cute, isn't it? I know. It's so cute.
Oh, I love that. And we did get a question from Michelle on why you should go on a Disney cruise to Alaska versus some of the other cruise lines. Chrissy and I are going to definitely be talking about that and kind of how to compare coming up. So stay tuned there. We got a question about linking reservations. If you have a big group, it looks like 6 cabins for the entire family. Can Disney link those reservations together, or I guess can your travel agent help with that?
Your travel agent can do that. You can do it through your Disney cruiseline.com account. And, I think it's a lot easier to do on the computer than the app. It's one of the few things that I think the computer web interface is a lot easier in linking accounts, but you can also work with your travel agent. Or you can call in and Disney can do it for you, as well. You definitely want to make sure that you do that ahead of onboard activity bookings, because linking isn't just for dining, it's for all of it. So if you want to be able to reserve excursions together, mix and match parties on excursions, that kind of a thing, you want to make sure that that's done ahead of time so that you can access everybody from one account when you're doing your online booking. And then as far as dining goes, I mean, unless it's like 2 adults in each stateroom, a party of 6 staterooms probably is not going to all fit at the same table. But if it's noted that, usually the highest table that I've seen personally seats 12. So I guess if it was 2 adults in each room, you could all fit. But if it's noted, you've all selected the same dining time, the same dining seating, and there are 2 dining seatings on Alaska sailings, just like all the other ones. Then if you all selected the same one and you're all linked, then most likely you'll be at 2 very large tables right next to each other.
Perfect. Okay. So no worries about sitting on opposite sides of the dining room. And then we got a question. Do they ever sail out of Seattle, or is it only Vancouver?
It's only Vancouver as of right now. Again, it certainly could change for 2024, but I would say it's unlikely. Those kind of things generally we find out ahead of time when Disney like we found out about Disney signing a contract with Fort Lauderdale. So those port arrangements do need to be made ahead of time and signed. So right now Disney does sail Alaska itineraries exclusively out of Vancouver.
Perfect. So we're going to dive back into questions here, but we will come back to the pre-submitted questions, but we'll come back to the questions in the comments. So stay tuned, guys. Chrissy and I are going to try to get to all the questions that we can today. But as far as budget goes, I know Disney Cruises already kind of have a budget in mind, but when you're looking at some of these excursions too, things start to add up. So when you're working with your clients, how do you recommend that they start to budget for a Disney cruise to Alaska?
So first, I like to really look at if you're flexible on dates and look at the price point of the cruise itself. That can be a great budgeting tool. And then another thing that I like to mention as far as budgeting too is really make sure that you check flight costs ahead of time before you commit to anything. For me personally, it's actually just as the same price to sail to Vancouver, to fly to Vancouver from, I fly out of North Carolina, to fly there, than it is the same price as flying to Miami. So it's kind of no different for me, but that's not the same for everybody. So it's a cost that you want to factor in ahead of time is just do a quick search for flights that you're comfortable with the flight price. Then look at sailings. There is massive variability in pricing. So I pulled a deluxe veranda room for 2 adults. In May, you're looking at about $4,900. And for the middle of July, you're looking at $9,000. So it's a massive difference. So that's another good budgeting strategy is if you are flexible on dates. And then your excursion costs. And this one is where, and I've talked about this in my long sailings video, is to take your excursion budget and instead of splitting it evenly between your 3 ports, really kind of like go all in on one port, which can look really cool in Alaska. That could be a helicopter tour, it could be dog sledding. It could be, there's really cool options, you guys. There's seaplanes, little flight tours. There's all kinds of really cool stuff, you guys. And then take a day to just hike because that's free, right?
Yeah, that is.
And really kind of schedule it that way. And there's such beauty that can be found in some ports just by walking. You don't have to schedule an excursion everywhere, but you do want to browse costs ahead of time. And what's amazing about Disney Cruise Line is that you can actually browse all excursions ahead of time. It's not necessarily guaranteed that every single excursion listed on their available ones will be available on your specific sailing. So for instance, if you're arriving at a port a little bit later, then some excursion that leaves at 8 in the morning might not be available on your sailing. But you can browse all of the Alaska excursions that Disney offers and include pricing ahead of time. So you can actually really know what you expect to spend. And again, so usually I tell people to budget anywhere on the lowest end, about $500 a person. And on the highest end, if you wanted to go all out, and do an incredible excursion at every port, then you're looking at like $1,500 a person for, a crazy cool excursion, like snowmobiles and helicopter tours every port. But $500 a person is a reasonable budget to start with, kind of keeping in mind that you're going to keep at least one of your port days pretty low key.
Awesome. And I know we'll get this question about excursions. Do you pay ahead of time for excursions or do you pay after you've gone?
So you will book them at your onboard booking date, which is dependent on your castaway status. And you'll know the price ahead of time, but it will be billed to your sailor's SeaPass account at the time that you do that excursion. If you would like to cancel it, you need to do so 3 days prior to sailing to avoid that charge.
Perfect. So there's flexibility if you kind of want to mix and match and get an idea. And it seems like Chrissy's really got a pulse on some of these amazing excursions. So I know we're definitely going to be talking about those. But as far as expenses goes, I know an additional one that we always get questions on is passports, because that is an additional cost. Do you need a passport for an Alaskan Disney cruise?
Yeah, so it sails out of Vancouver, so you need a passport to get into Vancouver. Yes, you need a passport. Yeah. You also need to make sure that you are eligible to enter Vancouver. There are, certain criminal offenses that Vancouver will deny entry for. So you do need to make sure that you are eligible to enter Vancouver, and that is something that is the client's responsibility. So it is, I don't know your whole life story, so make sure that you are eligible to enter Vancouver before you sail.
Yes, absolutely. And if you need more details on that, feel free to reach out to Chrissy. I know we had somebody in the group yesterday or the day before who was mentioning, prior DUI offense. And that's something that Vancouver does look at and consider. So there's other factors to keep in mind when you're planning a cruise. And that's why having a travel agent is so wonderful, because you might not be thinking about that. And I guess that's a good segue. Let's talk about excursions.
Yeah, so I have my personal favorites listed for several ports. There's all kinds of fun stuff, and I'm silly, guys. So these are me. They might not be you, but I love the lumberjack show in Ketchikan. That's just such a fun experience, and it's also very convenient. It's pretty much walkable off the port. Ketchikan is a really fun city. You can also book it directly through them. You don't have to book it through Disney Cruise Line. It's basically the same price. So if it does sell out with Disney Cruise Line, there's still availability generally. And it's just a fun show. And Ketchikan's an easy city to just walk around. So I like kind of being right there in Ketchikan. Over in Juneau, this is my top excursion like ever, is the whale watching and Mendenhall Glacier tour. This will be a great itinerary for you. You'll go on a small ship. It looks just like the Prudential commercials with the whales coming and them like flopping their tails down. You know what I'm talking about? That commercial. I might have just dated myself because I don't know if those commercials are still.
I know. No, but I know which one you're talking about.
And then you'll do a little bus tour over and to the Mendenhall Glacier, and you'll get an opportunity to have lunch, in that area too. Tasty's Crab Shack is there. There's all kinds of great stuff. And then Skagway, and there's a question in here about what is the best port to hike, and I would suggest Skagway. But it's also one of the most popular tours here is the Yukon Railroad. This is not necessarily my personal favorite. Like I would rather just do a long hike at Skagway, but I don't sail with three little boys that are going to just love a train or things like that. Like this is just so popular to families with kiddos. There's just a lot to see. You're on a train. It's a really cool train. You're going to go through the Yukon Gold Rush area. It's pretty neat. It is a longer train ride. So just keep in mind that it's about a 3-hour train ride. But you see tons of Alaska while you're on the train, and you're on a train. How cool is that?
Yeah. And do you ever see wildlife when you're out there? Like, did you see whales? Did you see other animals out?
You see whales, you see wildlife. You can actually, oftentimes people one of my little notes is to make sure you pack your binoculars because you can often see wildlife while you are on the ship. You're very close. It's not like the Caribbean where you can't see anything but ocean on some days. You'll have a lot of scenic cruising days. So definitely pack your binoculars. Because you'll get to see lots of wildlife, and if you do a hike, you'll get to encounter lots of wildlife. It's a special place for sure.
Awesome. Amazing. And I know you mentioned the rain earlier. So what happens if you have an excursion planned and it's just raining the whole time? Does Disney still do the excursion? Do you get a refund? How does that work?
It's variable based on excursion. So if it is like an outdoor walking tour, it's one of the neat things about excursions that I feel like a lot of people overlook is when you are booking them, there is a very lengthy notes section and a what to bring section. And you'll see in almost all of the Alaska excursions that they tell you to bring rain gear. Most of them will go. So really keep that in mind. If you're somebody that's like, I am not going to have an enjoyable time doing a walking tour of a city in the rain, consider not booking until you get on board. You're going to pay more, but you'll have a better idea of what the weather is going to be. It's not necessarily super advisable because it's also subject to availability. But if you just know you're that kind of person, keep that in mind. Yeah. But most likely it will go if it's just rain.
Yeah.
Severe flooding, probably cancellations. You're probably on the ship. But most likely it will still go. They are aware that Alaska is a rainy place.
Yes, after all these years. And we do have a question about when's the best time to see whales? Can you see whales no matter when you go on an Alaska sailing?
Pretty much all the time. Generally, people say that that middle chunk, that June, July, is like the height of the season. It's when the animal activity is the highest. But really, that's only excluding like half of May and half of September, really. So you're most likely going to see wildlife anytime.
Awesome. And another excursion we get tons of questions about, dog sledding. Do you have any recommendations on which port or which excursion to do?
So it's going to matter. I'm struggling to speak. It's going to depend significantly on budget. So there are 2 dog sledding options that are called like they visit the summer camp, doggy summer camp, basically. And these are significantly less expensive, but just know that there's not snow here. So it's a very different than what you might be envisioning, your sled dog excursion to look like. And so just keep that in mind, but they're usually only about $79 a person, and they do pull you, but it's through like a wooded forest, and it's not a snow tour. If you are looking for a snow sled dogs, you are going to be looking at roughly $400 a person. So really keep that in mind.
Got it. Okay. That all-in experience. I know, I'm like, I wish my family dog would give us a tour of something. But
I know.
that's
Our
asking.
have passed, but they were Chihuahuas, and I do think they could pull a sled. They had so much freaking energy. It would have been hilarious to watch.
I love that. We might be onto something here.
Yeah. Chihuahua tours.
And
Let's do it.
we got a question about hotels. So I'll go ahead and link. We've got a hotels recommendation on the DCL community website. So I'll go ahead and link that here. Have either of you sailed concierge in Alaska? What was the experience like? Is it worth it?
I have not, but I would say that we can reference Karen's amazing video about all the benefits of concierge. It's going to be the same as in any other sailing, early access to onboard bookings. And that's probably going to be your biggest benefit for an Alaska sailing, because some of these like kind of bucket list excursions do fill up really quickly. So being the first to book the helicopter tours or the seaplane tours will be an advantage for sure, especially if you've never sailed Disney Cruise Line before and you're looking at booking last as a first-time guest or booking first as a concierge guest. That's going to make a really big difference in what options are available to you. But the onboard experience would be the same as any other concierge experience. And the value of that is going to be something that's determined mostly by you.
Yeah. And Laurel, if you're thinking about it, reach out to Chrissy. She can help you price out a couple different options that might be best for your family to kind of get an idea of, is it worth it specifically for you guys? Because it might be. I know that concierge sounds absolutely amazing, and on Alaska cruise and an Alaskan cruise too. It would be great. Is there an age where you can leave a child on the ship? My husband and I would like to go ashore, and our son, who will be 14, is more interested in staying on the ship. I was just like your son when I was that age. I was like, Mom and Dad, see you later. I want to hang out with my friends in the teen club. So Chrissy, what about this?
So you know what, I'm having like some weird, I saw this question pop up and I was like, oh, I'm second guessing myself. I wonder if it's different because they're sometimes in Vancouver or sometimes like not in the US. So I'll double check to be sure, but 14 would be just fine. But I'll double check and message you the exact minimum age for you. But generally, it is okay to leave them in the kids club while you are on port.
Yeah, and there's a form if they ever wanted to get off the ship by themselves. Typically, we see this a lot in that Castaway, just because it's Disney's private island, and you don't necessarily want your kids going around all the ports on their own. But there is a form that you can sign for them at security so that they can get off the ship by themselves and they don't need you, but to stay on board. I think you're right. I think at that age they should be totally fine. You'll probably see them, yes, probably over by the ice cream, just nonstop. That's where I would be. So let's talk about Disney compared to other cruise lines when it comes to Alaska. I know we got this question earlier. So if you guys don't know this about Chrissy, she is a cruising fanatic. She's been on, I want to say almost, if not every cruise line, most. So she's a great person. If you are debating between, we did a video last month on Royal Caribbean versus Disney. If you're debating between a couple different cruise lines, she's an awesome resource to just help you talk through the facts. If you've been on Disney, what do you like about Disney, and see how that replicates over to other cruise lines. Great resource. I'll stop tooting your horn. But is a Disney cruise to Alaska worth it compared to other cruise lines in all your experience?
Yeah, so in the world of Alaska cruising, to like extremely oversimplify things, there are two types of Alaska cruises, and they are round trip cruises and one-way cruises. If you think about it, and again, that's very oversimplifying, because within round trip and within one way, there will be different itineraries. Some of them will start in Seattle, some of them will start in Seward, some of them will start in Anchorage, some of them will start in Vancouver. There's all kinds of differences, but generally that's the two big differences, right? Is there's one way, and then there's round trip. And a round trip cruise is what Disney offers. Disney does round trip sailings out of Vancouver. And the benefit to that is convenience. You have a round trip flight from wherever you are sailing out of. And also generally you have an itinerary that's really stopping at major spots, kind of giving you an Alaska highlights. But what you lose is being able to go deep into Alaska, because if you think about it mathematically, you can really only go about half as deep into Alaska as a one-way sailing, because you're going to have to turn around and come back. Now Disney does follow, it's not like a direct, point A to point B and then you pivot the ship and come right back. You will see a little bit of a different route on your way back to Vancouver, with different sites alongside. And you're always going to be doing pretty much like what they call scenic cruising, with the exception of your very first night leaving Vancouver. At that point, it's still kind of oceany looking. Otherwise, it's pretty much always going to be kind of through glaciers when you're on board. Super cool. So cool. But if you look at other cruise lines like Princess, Holland America, which are kind of considered to be the leading Alaska cruises, it's because they have a very different product. So they're going to do a one-way cruise. It's going to go very deep into Alaska, and it's going to either start or end at one of their private resorts in Denali. So you can add a land portion on. And at that point, it's just a totally different experience than what you're booking with Disney. Your Disney experience is really designed to be a family-oriented, classic Alaska experience. And so you're getting to see the wonderful, highlights of Alaska. You're not going as deep into Alaska, so you're not quite seeing as much of the frontier kind of area. You're really more focusing on mountains and glaciers, but you're having a very unique family experience at the same time. So it's a very similar conversation to comparing Caribbean sailings, right? Your Disney cruise is going to be more expensive than the same itinerary with some other cruise lines, but the onboard product is very different. You have all Disney entertainment, you have all Disney, kids club entertainment as well. Totally, extremely different ballgame than what the other cruise lines sailing Alaska are offering for children's programming. It's not even apples and oranges. It's like apples and dried up fruit. I don't know. It's just totally. Totally, kids club programming is not on the agenda of other Alaska cruise lines, because that's not their market. So if you are looking for a one-of-a-kind special family vacation, Disney Cruise Line Alaska is really where it's at.
Okay. And what if I am an adult and my spouse and myself want to go, kids are out of the house, or we don't have kids? Does your recommendation kind of shift then?
A little bit. If you're not a big Disney fan, then I would suggest looking at a different cruise line, just because you really are paying for that Disney product, and you're paying for you're paying for the upgraded luxuries, and you're also paying for the Disney intellectual property. So just to keep that in mind, you can do a very similar itinerary with a different cruise line on a ship that has different amenities that may be more suited to your needs, but it would just be a conversation that you and I would have. You could look at some of the Royal Caribbean ships have things like North Star, which is like an elevated observation deck. And so, you just have some really cool features that might be really appealing to an adults only party. And you might be totally willing to give up a Frozen dance party in order to have those features.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. There's so much to consider when you're planning your cruise, whether it's Disney or not. So just having somebody to talk it through with is so helpful. And we did get questions submitted beforehand about, is Disney ever going to come out with a land and sea option for Alaska? Do you have have you ever heard anything about this?
No, I have not. It's honestly, I'm not the biggest seller of Adventures by Disney, so it's slightly possible that there is a way to make those two things work, but I don't know. I wouldn't be the first to ask about Adventures by Disney, but if they did, that's how it would operate. As usually, it's like an Adventures by Disney extension of your cruise. Is how they do land and sea packages in Europe and Asia. So I don't know. Have to check on it.
Well, yeah, that would be fantastic. I can send that question your way. And we did get a question from someone else just jumping in. Is there a best month to go on an Alaskan cruise? And do you recommend a balcony?
So I do recommend balconies if it's within budget. And I will also note that generally the price difference from inside to balcony will be fairly significant on an Alaska cruise. The price difference from ocean view to balcony is not that significant. So I generally say that if you're going to try to budget down, go with that inside room and then plan on being outside of your stateroom as much as possible, or get that balcony room. The balcony is a really wonderful experience. It's nice to be able to have your own space to view because there's always something to look at, and it's neat to have like a space that nobody else can be watching from. But at the same time, there's something to view from almost every angle of the ship. So your balcony is limited to this one slotted viewpoint, if that makes sense. So I'd say a lot of my clients end up walking around, to get the most views during the day, and the balcony is their kind of breakfast point. It doesn't you shut the door, it doesn't get cold. If you keep the door open, then, well, you'll probably get cold. So I wouldn't do that. Just shut your balcony door, and it won't get cold.
Yes. And do you know which is the best cruise to experience the Denali Railroad? Do you know that off the top of your head?
You want to get Princess or Holland America to get all the way to Denali.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. So you hinted at it a second ago, but when it comes to Disney cruises to Alaska, what is different on one of those compared to I guess your standard Caribbean cruise that we've kind of talked throughout this? How do those compare?
So there's a lot of similar features, right? Service will be the same, exceptional service always. Character interactions are I feel like they're slightly increased. I feel like there's more characters, but maybe that's just me. I think that you see them more, and they have special outfits. So I think that's really special to know that you get to see characters in their special Alaska outfits. And then there is not a pirate night. Instead, there is the Frozen Freeze the Night Away deck party, which is a really cool event. And there are not fireworks, but it does snow. So there's always a different touch of Disney magic. The other kind of some things to think about are just there's some differences. So it's not necessarily a difference in what Disney offers, just a difference in what you should have prepared. So there will still be a formal night because most sailings are 7 nights or longer. But it's going to be a cooler weather formal night. So you can bust out your your fur wraps and stuff and, and have a different looking formal night than you would in the Caribbean. So it's the same offering, but you can kind of, choose to enjoy it a little bit differently. And then the other thing that I noted is, what am I noting? Oh, laundry. Okay. I don't know. I think this will be the perfect time to kind of interject it here. Laundry is something that is offered on all of Disney Cruise Line ships. It's self-service, and it will bill to your SeaPass card. And it's something that I feel like people rarely take advantage of on Caribbean itineraries because you can just pack 25 pairs of shorts. And you've got all this room. Shorts are small, right? But with Alaska sailings, I do highly recommend doing laundry. It doesn't take you that long. Do it. Just drop off your stuff. Go have dinner. Go pick it up. This will save you so much room in your suitcase because you're going to be packing layered, thicker clothing. And then also, it's a really good strategy if you wore out in the rain, just remember that you have that resource to wash out and dry out your clothes for the next day. So again, it's not something that's not offered on other, Disney's got laundry on Caribbean sailings too. It's just something that is such a bigger bonus feature on these Alaska itineraries.
I love that. So you could
there's so many characters on board. You have lots of character opportunities.
I was going to say, yes, Mickey and his galoshes, definitely one of my favorite. I have a friend who's basically only done Alaska Disney cruises because they love them so much. And her favorite picture is always to get one with Mickey dressed in that. And you talking about laundry. So you just have your
fur, little hood and her little fur boots. And one thing that is really neat is that usually the characters will come outside for photos when you're doing scenic cruising, through the Dawes Glacier. Glacier, that's another side note. Disney does not go to Glacier Bay. So if you are, that is another reason to consider a different cruise line like Celebrity or Royal Caribbean that would go to Glacier Bay, even on a round trip itinerary. So just to keep that in mind, tiny note. We previously talked about it. Yeah, so the characters meet outside when you're doing scenic cruising, and you get these glorious pictures with this mountain backdrop and Minnie in her little fur hoodie. Oh, she's so cute. She's so freaking cute.
Yes, agreed. I'm thinking of some of her pictures now, and
Mhm.
I mean, to say that those have been her Christmas cards several years in a row would be an understatement. Um, and oh shoot, I was just gonna ask you a question, but it totally escaped me. So it was about laundry. So you just use your key to the world card when you're going to
Mhm.
do laundry. It just
Yeah,
charges
it
to the
bills to your
room and you get that bill at the end.
or Key of the World. I'm sorry, I'm still in the Royal Caribbean mode. It bills to your Key of the World card, and so you'll see it on your stateroom charge, and it's easy peasy.
And it's not
Oh,
super
no, it's like
expensive, right? I think it's like
super
$2.
affordable. It's like $2 for the wash, and then like $2 for the dryer, and then there's like a coin operated detergent dispenser too. Like if you need that, it's like 50 cents. It's like so easy.
Awesome. Yes, and to save room when you're packing to bring back some cool
Yeah.
souvenirs, it makes a
Mhm.
difference. So let's go through a couple more of these questions. I know we're already over on time. We did check the form for questions, but if we missed anything, I think we've gotten to all the ones that were submitted ahead of time. But if we missed anything, just leave it here. Can you see the Aurora Borealis? I think I said that right. Lights on a Disney cruise.
Can you? Yes, maybe, right? It's always a happy bonus. We can't control nature.
No.
So, it's what I tell my clients is to go into it planning to see the things that you know you're going to see. You know you're going to see the glaciers. You know you're going to see the mountains. You know you're going to see wildlife, maybe not a specific type of wildlife, but you know you're going to see some wildlife. Depending on what excursions you booked, you know you're going to see trains or sled dogs or whales. One of the whale watching tours does actually guarantee whale sighting, which is so cool. I don't know how they do it. They
It
like
is
whale or
cool.
something. I don't know. Dory's there. Um,
Yes.
but so know that. And then if you see the Northern Lights, and this is also true for the Iceland itinerary, same deal. If you see the Northern Lights, that is a happy bonus. You can't go into it that your cruise is like not complete without seeing the Northern Lights, because it's not every night. It is a natural phenomenon that's incredibly beautiful. I actually have not seen it in Alaska. I have seen it in Iceland though, and I will never forget that memory. But it is just a happy bonus. So technically, yes, you can see them. And this past summer, they saw them the most in August, which is actually unusual. So I don't know, climate change, things are changing. So it used to be a little bit more that you had a better chance of seeing them earlier in the season. And this past summer season, it was August sailings. We had Northern Lights most frequent. So it is just a happy bonus, but it is possible, sure.
Amazing. So it sounds like if you just cruise all the way through May to
Yeah,
September, that's
just
going
book
to be
the whole
your best.
summer. Uh-huh.
I will say, if there was any cruise line that was going to figure out how to control the weather, I would put
Mhm.
my money on Disney. I
Yeah,
I don't
they
I don't know
can
if
do it.
that's gonna work. You're
Mhm.
right? The
Yeah,
Imagineers, they figure stuff out.
that's their job. They imagine it, and it happens,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes. Okay, so best method of transportation from the port to the airport, and are there any hotels that offer transportation? So I'm going to link the list to our article again on the DCL community website with recommendations to hotels for Alaska and for all the ports. Chrissy, is there any one in particular that's coming to
Um,
mind for you?
so the one thing that I note on transportation is, and again, everybody's coming from different places. So, I live on the East Coast, but plenty of my clients, Alaska is actually more convenient for them because they're up in Northern California, or Washington. And so it's actually like, less scary of a flight. But I do highly recommend my clients to fly into Vancouver the day before. Not even just the night before, like give yourself a full 24 hours in Vancouver. That way, especially if you have a longer flight, that way you're settled. You've got all your bags, everything is set. And there's actually a lot to explore in Vancouver. It's a very easily walkable city and a very clean city, and a lot of fun. They have a wonderful market that is it's called like Gramercy Market or Gramarye Market. But it's like so similar to Pike's Place in Seattle. Like it's so much fun, easily walkable. And then you can actually walk to port too. So there's a lot of great options. It's a really fun city. And I would strongly encourage flying in the day before. I love my clients that have like a night, like a it's nice when you're East Coast because they're 3 hours-ish behind us. So we could leave here at 7 in the morning and it's only 9 a.m. when we arrive in Vancouver. It's amazing. Magic. How did that happen?
Oh, right. Time magic.
Yeah, time magic. But arriving earlier, kind of like between like 9 a.m. and 1 p.m., really give yourself the full, 24 hours before you're boarding the ship the next day to settle and explore. And then I do also have clients, just depending on where you live, where you're flying from, that fly into Seattle and then take Amtrak up. That is also an option. If you're doing that, again, you really want to kind of cushion yourself extra time on your flight. So fly to Seattle, like maybe the day or 2 days beforehand. But it all just depends on flight costs for you. We have, like I said, Air Canada flies out of Charlotte, so it's very affordable, but that's not the case for everybody. So if you're looking at different airlines where you live, it might be more cost effective to fly into Seattle and then Amtrak up, and that's a fun scenic option as well.
Perfect. Yes. Everything before, during, and even after your cruise is customizable based on what's best for you. So like we've hinted at a couple of times, having someone to talk it through with, like Chrissy, just makes a heck of a big difference in that. And we got somebody commenting on what outfits you could bring. So that's great. If you need a packing list, we have one on the DCL community website. Chrissy, any tips on packing that you wanted to share?
Yeah, so definitely pack in layers. You do want to pack a coat. It's going to be not super cold, but it will be chilly, especially in the evenings. And, especially if you're looking at one of the glacier walking tours, you are going to be going further in elevation. So it will be colder there than it is on the ship. And then having layers is essential. Another thing to pack, I think I might've mentioned it, is binoculars. It's something that we don't typically associate with cruising, but with Alaska, it's so much fun, especially if you're traveling with kiddos, to just sit in your balcony and have you all, play I Spy with your binoculars. And, it's a great way to kind of like start your morning, lots of fun. And then make sure that you pack rain gear as well.
Yes. All those things that you might not think about, but they really come in handy for these Alaska sailings. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm like, okay, come on, 2024 itineraries. This sounds like a good one. So I think we've gotten to most of the questions. They do only cruise out of Vancouver at this point. I see somebody asking about, do they cruise out of San Francisco? If you guys have any other questions, like we said at the start, please feel free, reach out to Chrissy. She is here to help you plan your dream cruise, whether it's with Disney or with another cruise line. She's here to help kind of be that person to help you talk through the different options and what's going to be best for your family. So I am so glad that we were able to do this one tonight. If you guys have any recommendations or ideas on future events that you would like to see us do, let us know in the comments. We're here to help however we can. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you are subscribing. Not everybody gets the notifications on Facebook, but if you are on YouTube, you will definitely get those reminders from us. Chrissy, any last thoughts on Alaska before we head out for the evening?
No, except that if you are looking for Alaska 2024, I do already have a client notification list of when those itineraries are dropped, or if you're looking for summer 2024, not necessarily Alaska. But so always feel free to email me, and we can schedule an initial consult, even though they're not available to book yet. But that way I'll know exactly what you want, and I'll know you, and you'll know me, and we'll be ready to go at booking day. So always feel free to reach out, even though it's not available to book yet. It's amazing to be on the travel agent's notification list because you'll be the first one booked. And we know that that's the best time to book, especially Alaska. Prices will only go up.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's a great way to get ahead of the planning for sure. So you guys reach out. I'll copy and paste Chrissy's link into the comments after in case you don't want to look and type it out on screen. But reach out to Chrissy with any questions that you might have. And then I'm just seeing, do kids need passports? Since they fly out of Vancouver, if you are not a Canadian resident, I'm assuming you do need a passport. And which whale watching excursion did you recommend again?
It's the one in Juneau. It's the whale watching and Mendenhall Glacier. It's a combined excursion. So you do like a whale watching tour and then a little bus ride over to Mendenhall Glacier.
Amazing. That one sounds like it's going on my list for sure. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight, and we will talk to you guys soon. Bye, everybody.